If you saw my last stream, then you already know my friendship with Caustic Arrow of Poison is over, and Scourge Arrow of Menace is my new best friend. So wait a minute, isn't Caustic Arrow of Poison the skill that I was hyping up before, and isn't it supposed to be really good? Yes, and yes. In fact, it not just is supposed to be really good, it is really good. And on any other league start, I would have kept playing Caustic Arrow of Poison, because it wasn't like things were going wrong. The build was clearing efficiently, I'm sure I would have been able to take out bosses, and none of that mattered because in this league, there are so many cool new gems that I wanted to experiment regardless of the fact that my build was already working. And I happened across something truly interesting. Before I get into that though, I want to add a quick disclaimer. This is not a build guide. I'm not going to go into details of how I've built my character yet. If you want that video, then it's coming soon. Be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there. And for now, let's talk specifically about Caustic Arrow versus Scourge Arrow. Now I said that Caustic Arrow of Poison was working really well. For a single target, it did great, and when clearing, it was pretty darn good. But when it came to clearing, it was carried very slightly by Pathfinder, because you need some sort of pierces, and I didn't have them. This is largely because I was using Snakebite to cap my poison chance. Caustic Arrow of Poison plus Snakebite equals 100%. But I wanted to mess around with things, so I used Artillery Ballista on single target. That also felt really, really good. So I decided, all right, I need another way to cap it. Oh, Snakebite, that works pretty well too. Now, my plan was to get Pierce on the tree, and I think that would have solved everything for the low cost of 3 skill points. But this is the league to experiment with everything, and I'll admit, I didn't really get very far in parts 3, 4, and 5 of the gem reveals, because I'd been so busy before the league started. And so when I saw the Scourge Arrow stuff, I was like, oh, a hit-based Scourge Arrow for poison and stuff. Isn't that what GGG wanted already? All right, I'll try it. And so I bought one, and I hadn't really read the gem that much. So, I set it up with Scourge Arrow, Mirage Archer, Infused Channeling, because you want that chaos damage buff for channeling your skill, and I tapped it a couple times in my hideout, and I was like, wait, it's not channeling. It's an attack. Wait a minute, they basically just made Scourge Arrow into Tornado Shot. And sure enough, Scourge Arrow was now dropping pods and firing arrows instantly. No channeling required. Not only that, but it had really good effectiveness of added damage. The thorn arrows still do 50% less. It's not perfect, but it was pretty darn easy to get them to overlap. And so at that point, I was sold. Because I had all Ellie damage could poison, and I was playing an Ellie damage build, it was really easy for me to use Artillery Ballista as my single target. I wasn't locked into Fizz scaling or Fizz and Chaos scaling the way I would be otherwise. And because Scourge Arrow now has really quick clear, I had a super strong clear skill and a good single target skill, and no Caustic Arrow in sight. And this is what I used to clear most of my remaining yellow maps, and then I got a tip from a friend. He asked me if I had tried Aeronova with the Scourge Arrow of Menace, and I hadn't. I had tried Greater Volley, and I'd tried Greater Multiple Projectiles. Greater Volley felt awful, don't do that. Having all the arrows line up means most of the time the thorn arrows just miss. But noticing that the thorn arrows do line up should have been a tip-off for me to try Aeronova and see how that modified the behavior. Because what it does is it causes all the Scourge Arrow projectiles to kind of spawn in a ring around a given target, making it much more likely that the thorn arrows overlap. I would imagine this means it's relatively impossible a lot of the time to directly hit a target with one of the primary arrows, but the primary arrows aren't really your concern anyway. You're going to do a lot more damage, especially if you stack 6 or 8 projectiles with the thorn arrows, and the primary one is just icing on the cake. Though I guess if you drop it directly on the enemy's head, it should still do damage fine. It's just sometimes a little bit difficult to aim at, especially when enemies are moving quickly. And so I tried that, and all of a sudden my damage was way better. In fact, it was so good that I didn't really notice any sort of bump in difficulty going from around a tier 8 map all the way up to a tier 13 map. And so I'm easily cruising through reds now without an issue. Or at least as without an issue as anyone can be in this league, because there are some enemies that just feel like they're, well, immune to your damage due to empowered wisps. But outside of those empowered enemies, I'm cruising through without an issue. I've even been able to farm some ultimatums, which hasn't gone perfectly since I'm still relearning the new mod pool. Don't worry, there's going to be a video on that soon. If you're interested in ultimatum or strategies on running it, get subscribed for that. It'll be coming out hopefully within the next few days. But for now, I need to focus on building up my watchstones, getting some currency, and putting my build in order. Because here's the last thing that I haven't mentioned. All the footage that you've seen so far, including some of the higher tier maps, was all done on 2 4-links, sort of. My bow, the self-attack, complete 4-link. My Mana-Forged Arrow setup, complete 4-link. The artillery ballista in my chest, it does have level 10 chance to poison support, but since it doesn't need the actual chance to poison, it's really just about the flat chaos, which can't be adding that much overall. So on what is pretty darn close to 3 4-link setups, I have more than enough DPS for red maps. My bow is about 550 DPS. It's fuller trash that happened to be good enough for day 1. It's probably not good enough anymore. But that's been the case for a lot of my gear. I spent quite a bit getting both Scourge Arrows of Menace, and I haven't really spent all that much on the rest of my items. So in the near future, I'm probably going to sit down, do some crafting, maybe do some blasting, get a bit of currency, upgrade my gear, see how it feels, and probably be ready to crush tier 16 maps. And so in this case, keeping an open mind and being willing to experiment, even when my build was going well, absolutely paid off. If you're playing Caustic Arrow of Poison, and you're like, oh god, is my build bricked? No, not at all. Caustic Arrow of Poison is totally fine. And especially if you're not going Magi. So you don't have an elemental damage bow, you don't have all damage can poison, any of that, then Caustic Arrow of Poison is really, really, really strong. However, if you do have elemental damage can poison, which I do, and if you do have all of the fun new stuff at your disposal and want to feel experimental, I do think Scourge Arrow of Menace is a better skill. But I suspect that both are going to be able to reach the dot cap, because the other difference is, Caustic Arrow seems to function much, much better when you let your ballistas do it, so that they can kind of automatically aim for you, since you lose quite a bit of DPS from being off-center of the enemy, and I'm not the best at aiming. And I didn't really want to play a ballista build. I haven't tried to buy a Wilma's, and instead I'm focusing on self-attack plus Mana-Forged Arrows, with my ultimate goal being to drop artillery ballista from my setup entirely and play a self-attack bow build. Yeah, you know, the thing that everyone used to do before ballista totems were a thing, and now I kind of want to do again. Will I succeed, or will I be stuck with a ballista forever? I don't know, but I'm going to keep trying it and see where things go. And if you want to come along for the ride, well, get subscribed and buckle up. For now though, I'm curious. Have you been experimenting with your League starter as well, or did you go with something tried and true? And if you have been experimenting, what are some of the cool things that you've discovered? Be sure to leave them down below, and maybe if there's something cool, I might pin a comment so everyone else can see it as well. Though I also might forget to do that, so no promises, I'm really bad at remembering stuff. On the other hand, if you still need a build, maybe you're playing on console and getting a little bit of a later start as a result, check out my top League starters for Affliction League. Link to that will be up in the card and down below, along with some supplementary resources on how Scourge Arrow tends to work, though it's a little different with Scourge Arrow of Menace. Now before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for continued support. For $5 a month, you can see your name here on screen, and your direct support goes a really long way to ensuring I can keep making videos just like this one. Link to support is of course down below. But that's all for me today. Thanks for watching, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you again sometime soon.